Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are going to be discussing House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 8. We finally hit the finale. Now, it wasn't everything I hoped and expected for, but we got some peak action, peak storytelling, and then just amazing acting. Like, round of applause to Emma Darcy. She did a phenomenal job. Like, the work they put in all season, I thought it actually paid off. Her arc going from a broken mother grieving her multiple sons and daughter Visenya to essentially becoming Maegor the Cruel, Maegor with teats. But we're going to be breaking down every hidden detail, Easter egg, and going into some book departures that happen in tonight's episode. This is your official spoiler warning. So everything that happens in episode 8 is going to be fair game. There will be some book spoilers I get into, but I will give you a proper warning before I get there. Instead of going in chronological order, I thought it'd be easiest to just go from each character's arc in the episode. But without further ado, let's get into it. We start this week's finale with Grand Maester Orwyle. He's delivering some earth-shattering news to the Queen that, indeed, Aegon has risen. This completely shatters Rhaenyra's world. Like, she is so obsessed with being legitimized and ordained in front of the masses, in front of the High Septon, that she's really lost sight of this war. And it's led to many, many mistakes. But she takes the news to Daemon, informs him that Aegon has risen from the dead, taken Sunfire, and then burned the Mutin host, and then flown to God knows where. But people have sent out ravens, Aegon's supporters, and seen him as legitimate now. This king has risen from the dead, and it is a story of legend, as Larys once said. But Daemon reminds her that they are of Valyrian blood, that they answer to higher gods than any common man does. And he's got a decent point. If only they would have led with fire and blood, I think a lot of this could have been prevented. But he has slowly been pushing Rhaenyra towards seeing the realm from his eyes, from his point of view, from the fire and blood point of view, and she finally gets there. But she tells him, do not make a monster of me. Pretty much Rhaenyra wants to ensure that the people continue to have faith in her long after the Battle of Tumbleton. But here we have Baela's minor arc during the episode. It doesn't involve much, but it is impactful. We have her calling Rhaenyra out, saying that it is your fault that Corlys has been taken. Like, what are you going to do about it? It leads to some back and forth. Rhaenyra says that your searches have led to absolutely nothing. And she's kind of got a point. They haven't been able to really locate Vhagar. But you really feel for Baela here. Like, she's lost everything. She's lost her betrothed, Jace. She's lost the potential of being the queen, of just having a purpose in this life. And one of the few people she actually cares about, her stepmother, Rhaenyra, has completely abandoned her. And she's being used as a tool, as a weapon of mass destruction with her dragon. And it'll be interesting to see where her arc and Rhaenyra's, and for that matter, the rest of Valyrian's go, going into Season 4. But Baela is then confined to the Red Keep by order of the Queen. Alyn's journey is an intriguing one. It begins with him assuming command of the Valyrian fleet. There's a little bit of a power struggle there between him and the other Valyrian foot soldiers, because they want to go after their Lord Commander. They want to rescue Corlys in Tumbleton, and can you really blame them? But Alyn reminds them that he is the heir to the Driftwood throne and their future leader, and he squashes that right there. But he later has a very riveting conversation with his brother Adam. Adam kind of calls him out on his little power trip. He says, do you even know that Baela has been confined to the Red Keep? Alyn has really no reaction to this, and he calls him out further. Says, this is a Pretty, pretty high rise coming from a bastard. Pretty much saying that he is only doing this for his own rise. And I don't think that's really in Alyn's character, but that's how it really comes off. That he is just extremely power hungry, and he's ignoring everyone he cares about. But later in the episode, him and his men escort Rhaenyra and Joffrey to the Sept to be anointed in front of the High Septon and the masses. And Rhaenyra presents him a terrible dilemma where he is forced to kill the High Septon. And you can see him hesitate. And when he does, Rhaenyra gives him that push and says, "You are of Valyrian blood. You answer to way higher gods than he does." Man, he does it. He offs him. And you could tell immediately he looks at his blade like, holy shit, I'm going to be cursed for eternity. Here we have a knighting ceremony between Aemond and Daemon, with Gwaine just chilling in the background, giving him that scathing look during the whole process. But here is a spoiler warning. I'm going to go into a few of the events that take place in the book for a comparison. So fast forward about 20-30 seconds and come back later. But in the books, the Battle of Honeywine is ensuing, and the green forces are trapped between two black armies. And you have Daemon arriving on Caesarion, just spraying that cobalt blue flame and annihilating that whole host. And he saves the day. I mean, before his arrival, it was all but guaranteed that they were doomed. That it was a wrap for him. But Daemon the Daring was born. Afterwards, to celebrate, Ormond Hightower hosts a feast in his name. And there he is knighted in front of everyone. And he dubs him Daemon the Daring. I thought it was way more interesting in the books. A cool little scene. It felt a little rushed in the show. But, both of them were gold. I thought so. But anyways, later in the episode, we have Daemon and Gwaine just witnessing this complete meltdown by Ormond. This is when Ormond gets the news relayed to him that Ulf is nowhere to be found. He's abandoned post. He's MIA. And Gwaine gets the grand idea that they're going to take Corlys, free him, and then use him to treat with Daemon and the rest of the Rivermen and Winter Wolves. They offer him some sort of peace treaty. I thought it was a really bold move by Gwaine. He says that Daemon is going to be king of Old Town, while Rhaenyra can take the rest of the 7 kingdoms or 6 kingdoms or whatever it would be after that. And Corlys intervenes. He comes up with an even better idea, I thought. He said, nah, scratch that. We're going to have Daemon be Warden of the South. He'll rule over Old Town. And Rhaenyra will treat him kind of like the Warden of the North. Kind of like how the Lannisters treated Lord Roose Bolton in the original Game of Thrones series. Daemon ain't having this shit. Corlys gives him the chance to go for either peace or a mountain of dead high towers. And what the hell do you think Daemon's gonna pick? That was a brutal scene when he grabs Gwaine by the throat, chokes him out, and sends him on his way. Classic Daemon, I guess. Fast forward a little bit in the finale. We have Daemon with Caesarion in the Sept. And Gwaine tries to stop him. He says, I do not want to see you fly to your all but certain death. Like, do not die for Ormond and his crazy-ass plan. And it's a nice scene between the two. And it was just cool seeing Caesarion. Again, I wish we would have been able to see the Blue Queen in action. I still think it's coming in season 4, but it really sucks. We have to wait 2 years. We have Gwaine and Daemon just completely in awe. They see Silverwing has flipped. This is the piece on the board that Ormond has put forth to them. And they are just in awe of everything. But by episode's end, we have Gwaine. He's rising from the ashes of the Dragon Flame aftermath. So we know he is alive going into season 4. But Darren is nowhere to be found. You know he's okay, but still nowhere to be found. I wanted to cut to a brief intermission in the video just to remind you guys to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more House of the Dragon content like this. Let's get back to it. As far as Rhaenyra's arc in the episode, I was genuinely intrigued and interested in everything Rhaenyra. It starts with her meeting with Helaena, and Helena's busy with her needlepoint, and Rhaenyra just casually takes it and pushes it to the side. It's like, why can't you just pay a little closer attention to this, Rhaenyra? Like, the answer would have been right in front of you. You could have got some valuable intel there. But no, that would have been too obvious. But Helaena calls her out. She tries to tell her a story about these Westerosi beetles, trying to explain something beautiful in the world that isn't war, rolling over everyone, power driven. And Rhaenyra, it just goes completely over her head. And Helaena calls her out. She says everything in this city and King's Landing is ugly. You yourself are ugly. And this just pisses the queen off. And it ends with her tragically force-feeding Helaena. It just really turned my stomach here. Like, you felt terrible for her. Like, she's clearly on the verge of breaking mentally. And this might have been the breaking point to push Rhaenyra from someone that just wants to do the right thing and just wants to get everything in line to someone that has a clear-cut ambition for a dictatorship, man. Everything Rhaenyra's way, and you will really see it towards episode's end. But you have her, she is escorted to the Grand Sept with herself and Joffrey, and they see the Queen of Bastards graffiti on the wall, and she's telling them the prophecy of the prince who was promised, passing that down to her new heir. We get to the Septon. He is taken out, like I once said, and this is where we get the Hitler-like speech, the dictator-esque Rhaenyra the Cruel Maegor with Teats speech. She's got the red eyeliner, she's got the chainmail on, the armor. She does look badass. Like, the makeup department did an excellent job here. I thought so. And this is where I scratch my head a little bit. She lets the small folk know about the story of Ice and Fire, the prince who was promised prophecy. I about lost my shit when I heard her and Daemon going back and forth about it at the Black Council meeting. And this is just a step way too far, I thought. I understand it for storytelling purposes, but from a character development point of view, like, what the hell are you doing, Rhaenyra? It really bothered me to see that. But later on in the episode, we do find Helaena tragically impaled on the spikes below the Red Keep. It was very reminiscent of poor old Daemon jumping to his own death in Game of Thrones. But Rhaenyra does stumble upon that tapestry Helaena strung together. And it's revealed that it has Helaena on there, jump into her own demise. And then Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne, blood dripping down everywhere, dragon flames surrounded. And she doesn't see any ill portents in that. She just looks at it, maybe, as herself on the throne, and she's like, content with that. Shuts the door, episode ends. But I cannot believe she didn't take more away from that. I guess that's just how far gone Maegor with Teats is right now. But as far as Mysaria, we don't get very much in this episode. Her arc begins with the devastating news from Alyn and Massey that she has been booted the F out of King's Landing. She's to board a ship, go to Pentos. She's going to be provided plenty of provisions of gold and a keep and servants to help her out. And you immediately flash back to Shae in Game of Thrones. Like, it is the same situation. Scorn lovers sent away because they would be nothing but a problem. Mysaria represents a point of view, a good moral compass that Rhaenyra wants no part of anymore. She is seeing through the eyes of Daemon and the eyes of a dictator going forward. But later in the episode, she does warn Helena. Says that Rhaenyra is never going to let you go. And you wonder, does this play a part in her death? I think it played a minor part, but I think Helena's been working on that tapestry for a long time. It was going to happen regardless. But when Mysaria dips out of her procession where she's getting escorted out of town, she stumbles up to Rhaenyra's speech. And did anyone else get Shepherd vibes here? I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to spoil anything for non-book readers. But I got major vibes here. And I wonder if the showrunners, if Condor is going to go in a little bit of a different direction for season 4. I thought Daemon's journey was very interesting this week. He starts by arriving on Caraxes in Tumbleton. And he's giving a little pregame speech to Black Alley, Oscar, Roddy the Ruin. And he says, you need to keep the Queen's honor intact. The realm is watching. And they kind of laugh it off. He later gives his little Braveheart speech on horseback. And that was pretty cool. But he informs the Winter Wolves to jump over the walls, take the city, because there are kids lined everywhere. Speaking of moral dilemmas. But Daemon finally makes his way up to the front gate with Caraxes, and he sees a line full of children there, and he tells them to get out of the way, but 2 of them end up staying. You can tell he hesitates a little bit. You can tell his conscience is weighing on him, but he commands Dracarys 2 seconds later, so how much could it really be weighing on him? He makes his way through the city, kicking ass with Dark Sister, until he stumbles upon Bold John Roxton. We get an epic duel of worldly proportions where we get 2 Valyrian steel swords against one another. Dark Sister versus Orphan Maker. And it is everything the audience could have asked for. Daemon, he was holding his own for a while, but eventually Roxton got the best of him. He probably had a good 7,500 pounds on him, and he was using his physicality to his every advantage. He even starts to gouge Daemon's eye out, and it's not looking good for him. And then, luckily, there's some debris that falls between the two that separates them. But just before that, he does see Hugh calling for Kat's name, and this is where we learn, or Daemon learns that, the Dragon Seed, Hugh, he actually has other allegiances. Maybe there was a reason he abandoned his post and showed up on Vermithor. But eventually, Hugh does find Kat, and she is predictably dead. But that makes you wonder, where are his allegiances gonna lie in season 4? Like, we know he turns betrayer in the books, but it isn't as cut and dry in the actual series. So it'll be cool to see what the writers do going forward. But going back to Daemon, after he is separated from Bold John Roxton, he just sees all the death and destruction caused by Silverwing and the Dragonfire. And I mean, there's dead children, there's mothers holding their children, and like, he's probably thinking, did we go too far here? Is this going to change him? His personality, his moral compass going forward? What he whispers in the ear, the Queen. I don't know how much it's going to change. Daemon is a pretty set in stone character, but you've seen some growth from him this season. You've seen it with him as a father to Rhaena. So I think it's possible. But his shock and awe is interrupted by Corlys, and he says, yo, we are getting the fuck out of here now. Now, everything involved with Ormond this week was pure gold, like usual. But most of his journey this week involved frantically searching for Ulf. The shot that we previously saw in the Weeks Ahead trailer, or I believe for the finale trailer as well, with that dragon flying overhead, I believed it was Vermithor flying overhead of Ormond as he gathers the troops to take on the Black Host. I was wrong. That was him looking for Ulf, and then Caraxes flying overboard, so I was wrong on that. But eventually, he does find Ulf in the privy, and he makes the mistake. Of course, him in that state, it's going to cause a gag reflex with Ormond and gross him out. But he freaking yanks him out of there, kicks him like a dog in front of all the people in the town, and he makes the same stupid-ass mistake that Daemon did. The same mistake that got him to switch sides in the first place. It's like, how dumb can you be? But Roddy the Ruin, he begins by leading his charge of the Winter Wolves, and he's amping them up. You see the Stark shield and everything, but they finally make their way over the wall, and there's this little kid that gives him a love tap on the leg, and he looks at him and just freaking clobbers him with his axe. It's like, come on, man, Daemon just talked about this shit. But eventually, he spots Ormond Hightower, and it leads to an epic fight, man. You got Ulf burning the Black Army in the backgrounds. Just the visuals were stunning right here. I loved everything to do with this fight. But they're going back and forth. Just like in the books, Ormond chops his arm off, and Roddy still is able to use that to his advantage. Blood ends up spraying in Ormond's mouth. He gags. And then that slight hesitation, he gets a knife up the ass. And what does Roddy say? That is a proper fucking from the north. Oh, man. All right. We'll come back to that. And as far as Ulf, he starts in a pub. He's loving all the adoration and support and just the love pouring in from the small folk, from the people in the bar. And he's talking shit about Daemon. He's like, oh, and his lover or his niece or his wife, just completely talking shit about the rogue prince. And he ends up disappearing for a little bit. He's eventually shamed in the privy. But you have him climbing aboard Silverwing, and that poor kid got his throat slit. But he gets on Silverwing, makes a little Yui, and then we get that epic first Dracarys from Ulf. And it was cool to see Silverwing up close and personal. The CGI, spot on as always. And later in the battle, we get the beginning of Ulf's second betrayal. He does spot Ormond's on top of the wall, and as soon as he gets the knife up the ass, Ulf comes screaming down on Silverwing and says, yeah, fuck you too. And then burns both of them. Roddy just embraces it. But then he looses his dragon's flame on the entire town. And just complete shift from the books. We are back in Harrenhal with Aemond, and it starts with him having this terrible nightmare involved with Rook's Rest and the burning of his brother. And you can tell he just feels hella guilt for trying to kill Aegon. And that's the theme for the episode. But Alice tries to calm his nerves, relays her own personal story to just kind of relate to the One-Eyed Prince. And it's revealed, big, major reveal here, that she was indeed the wife of Harren the Black. She was there during Aegon the Conqueror's burning of Harrenhal. And their baby together was ultimately killed by dragonfire. She did try to save the baby. She turns to ancient incantations and then forces in the forest, which could have been what? The green men, it could have been children of the forest, something. But that ended up leading to an immortality curse that pinned her to Harrenhal to ultimately wait on, like, hand and foot on every Castellan to come after her. And that explains her immense ties to the lands, to Harrenhal, and why she is so infatuated with the property. I think it was a big payoff. Like I said, huge reveal. But we spent a painstakingly long amount of time in the same tiring theme at Harrenhal, the just utter dread there. And I think Ryan Condal did kind of cook here a little bit. So, round of applause. I loved every second of the Hair in the Black connection. And she even tells them, like, or Aemond says, like, that was 100 years ago. One of the best scenes in the episode takes place in Harrenhal. Yes, Harrenhal. But we have Aemond's awaking to some commotion going on in the castle. And he believes it's Vhagar coming back to him. So he checks it out, and here comes Aegon and Sunfire. They land in the same spot Vhagar does when him and his rider come in and torch the place. But you get Aegon saying,
I'm alive! Imbecile.
And he is absolutely freaking going at his brother, saying that I should burn you slowly with Sunfire. And it is clear as day that Aemond is completely surrendered. He wants no part of a fight. And it's pretty obvious that Harrenhal has changed him a bit. But the task going forward now, Aegon and his brother are to find Vhagar, fly to Tumbleton, take care of Daemon and Ormond, get them in line, retake the Iron Throne in Aegon's name, and then and only then will the beef between the two brothers be squashed. And I think that's a pretty big step for Aegon to take. There were a few scenes left a bit ambiguous, open-ended, such as the end of the episode where Silverwing is flying. You have Caraxes chasing after her, loosing his flame on her, and then you have Vermithor coming in the picture. I guess it's open for interpretation, like, does Vermithor loose his flames on Caraxes, hitting some of the Black Host, and that is why they think Hugh is turned betrayer? I wish we would have got to see more of it. I appreciate what the writers are trying to do here, leaving it open-ended like that. And then we never really find out the fate of Oscar Tully, Black Alley, never find Darren by episode's ends. Now, everything that involved Ulf and burning Tumbleton and the Black Army, Corlys's absolutely shocked expression when the camp burns, that was gold. Like the Winter Wolves, them kicking ass inside the city gates, that was amazing. Caraxes using his head as a battering ram, that was amazing. But I just wish we would have got to see more of that ending scene with Vermithor. Well, that's about it today. Thank you guys so much for watching. But I want to ask you, did this change Daemon's philosophy going forward? Just seeing the other side of what Dragonflame and using dragons in battle can do. Is that going to change how he views this war coming up? Like, maybe he'll think twice about burning some castle or armies or town or whatever it may be. And then, was the Queen's change a little too fast? Did it happen too rapidly? I think it worked. I think they've been building up to it all season. It was a little, like they were pouring it on a little thick with that speech. But again, I thought the acting was phenomenal. Emma Darcy if she does not win an Emmy. Like, she was completely robbed. And then what's going to happen in Tumbleton going forward? It's clear there's going to be some sort of an issue that Gwaine and Darren have for all burning inside of the city's gates like that. Are they going to find out? What's going to happen with Hugh? Like, there's so much to discuss going forward, just involving Tumbleton. But again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.